the Lord's protection of a prodigal. 2 Thessalonians 3:3 English Standard Version. But the Lord is faithful. He will establish you and guard you against the evil one. Today's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be longer. I'm going to tell you a story about how I had a head-on collision with someone who was drunk, and God preserved my life. I was working a second job trying to get some money together so I could start a business. And I was delivering pizzas. I was on Highway 74. I had the cruise set at 50 miles an hour. I'm driving down what we call Dalton Pike, and there's a convenience store on the left, and someone starts to come out to the edge of the road kind of fast and just hard brakes and stops right at the edge. So I tap the brake to turn off the cruise and see if I need to slow down. And I slowed down about 5 miles an hour to 45. And someone rushed around them and got right beside them on the edge of the road, like they were going to come out too. So I'm watching them and I'm letting the car slow down as I head toward a small rise. And I ended up slowing down to about 35 miles an hour with my foot above the brake. And I topped that rise. And as I topped the rise, I look down and I watch a car come around the corner at the bottom of the hill and come into my lane. There's a semi truck behind him, and I have a 4-foot ditch on the right hand side. And so I can't jump over into the left lane and try and miss him. I don't want to go into the ditch, so I'm on the brake and I slow down to about 5 miles an hour before he hits me going 45 or 50. He hits me going 45 or 50. The cars come together. The impact pushes the front of the wheel well into the front of the tire and pushes the tires back where they are pushed up against the back of the wheel well. And the impact throws me forward. The impact makes the airbags deploy, and I smack the airbag. The seatbelt's still catching me here, and I end up with a lot of soft tissue damage in my neck and my shoulder and upper back. I came forward and both of my knees drove into the dash. I ended up with a meniscus tear done on the left knee, and on the right knee, I had to have a lateral release done. The impact was so much that I had to force the door open. It didn't want to open up. I thought the car was on fire because it looked smoky inside. It turns out that was all of the preserving stuff around the airbag that was floating in the air. That actually ended up giving me an infection in my eyes and my sinuses from the irritation from it. I get out, I go to check Mr. Tate, and I call 911. I had a cell phone back 22 and a half years ago. And I find a pulse in his wrist, and he's shallow breathing. And then I lose that pulse, and I go to check in his carotid artery, and I find the pulse again. It's really faint, and then he gasped and he fell over, and I could not find a pulse. I asked the 911 operator if they wanted me to do CPR, and they said don't move him. So I was bound that I could not move him, because when I took all those courses for CPR and first aid, that's one of the things. If they say don't move them, you can't move them or you are liable. So in the meantime, an EMT showed up and asked me if I could do the C-spine, and I said yes. So I did the C-spine. We put him on the ground, and in the meantime, a nurse shows up, and the two of them start doing CPR. I start walking toward where my car is, and the deputy sheriff from Bradley County is there, and he's looking for me. And I told him I was doing what I was doing, and he said, well, I saw you over there. I thought you were an EMT. You're dressed like one. And in the meantime, he was a little angry. And then my friend, who happened to be chief of rescue at the time, looks up and says, "Jeff, are you okay?" And he says, "Oh, you know him?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he said, "You need an ambulance ride?" And I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Hey, I'm going to take him to the hospital with some friends." And he pulls the doors open, and inside are two other friends I grew up with. They were both EMTs. And he tells the officer, "Hey, find somebody to take my truck to the hospital. I'm riding in the ambulance." And so we all pile into the ambulance, and they give me a ride there. And we find out what all my injuries are, and we start that ordeal. But here's the thing. They told me if I had not hit the brakes, slowed down to 30, 35 miles an hour, topping that hill with my foot above the brakes so I could automatically react and almost come to a stop before he hit me, I probably would have topped that rise and met him at the bottom, and I would be crippled or dead right now. I started out with that verse, and here's the thing: I was a prodigal at that time. I had been running from God for just a little while, and God was still preserving me. God had a plan for my life. He had something He wanted me to do in my life, and I believe this is it. He was protecting me even though I was running from Him. God may be protecting you too. And if He is, God has something for your life. And it may be that He doesn't want you to die in your sin. If you're running from God, you need to find God, and you need to turn to God, and you need to give your life back to Him. God bless everyone. Love you.